Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is pro-revenge story. My landlord, Derek, was a terrible human being. Honestly, calling him a human is even pushing it. Just a few things he has done to me over the past 3 years. Stole my dryer and other household products that were in a common area. Made me pay for a plumbing repair which was deemed normal wear and tear. Tried breaking into my house. Retaliated against me because I went to my lawyer after he sent me a letter about a parking spot. He tried charging me an extra $150 a month. Listen, I told him over the phone last summer. The lease clearly states that spot is included. Well, things change, Derek snapped. Either pay the extra or find another place to park. Mind you, I was never late for rent in 3 years except for when he made me pay for the plumbing repair. So the next month I was a couple days late. Sorry about the delay, I texted him. Had to cover that $300 plumbing bill first. Late fees apply regardless of excuses, was his only response. The list goes on. Now this apartment was nowhere near nice. I found out the plumbing was illegal. He left me with a porch for years that had severe safety issues. The ceiling paint was always falling down, gas heater was not up to code, and so on. I finally got my chance to leave after he wanted to raise my rent $500 a month in January 2025. He will do anything and everything to get more money out of his tenants. It's market rate, he insisted when I confronted him. Take it or leave it. That's nearly a 40% increase, I argued. That can't be legal. Derek just shrugged. Not my problem if you can't afford it. So I called the building inspector 4 days before I left. I told him everything. The porch, when he finally replaced it in 2023, didn't have a permit and was definitely not up to code. I told him about the plumbing and the heater. I went on and on. The inspector came over the very next day. I saw him taking measurements. Each violation is a $500 a day fine until fixed. I honestly don't know what happened, but my God, did it feel good to finally get him back. He's at the very least on the town's radar. A week before I moved out, he tried telling me I needed to be out at a specific time. I never responded, and where I lived, that's not how it works. He tried to threaten me with the police if I wasn't gone. Well, I went to the police myself that morning to warn them. The landlord did come by, threaten me, and harass me. I called the police. They informed him I was in the right. You need to be out by noon on the 30th, Derek texted me the day before. I ignored it. I'm serious, he called later. If you're not gone, I'm calling the cops. When Officer Martinez arrived after my call, Derek was red-faced and shouting. Sir, the officer said calmly to Derek, the tenant has until midnight on the final day of the lease. That's the law. Long story short, he had broken into my apartment. I had left to go to storage. While I was gone, he nailed my door shut. I told the police to get the supervisor because I was over being harassed by this guy. Go figure he left before the supervisor could get there. I'm positive he knew he'd be arrested on site. When I returned and found the door nailed shut, I couldn't believe it. Are you seeing this? I asked the officer who had responded to my call. He literally nailed my apartment shut while my stuff is still inside. This is absolutely unacceptable, the officer said, taking photos. We need to get the sergeant out here right away. Got the police report? They're charging him with a felony for breaking and entering. Fines plus a charge. Don't be a jerk to good people. The next one is an entitled people story. I inherited my grandfather's property about 5 years ago. It's a beautiful piece of land up in the mountains, roughly 200 acres of forest, trails, and scenic views. Right in the middle of it all sits my cabin. It's nothing fancy, just a small 2-bedroom structure my grandfather built himself back in the day, but it's got everything I need. I work remotely as a software developer, so living up here away from the chaos of city life has been perfect for me. The property has a long private road that winds up from the main highway. About halfway up that road, there's a small cleared area where my grandfather had allowed an old friend to park a trailer decades ago. When that friend passed away, the trailer sat empty for years. I never bothered with it because it wasn't hurting anyone, and frankly, I had plenty of space everywhere else. That changed when Karen showed up. I first noticed the activity down by the old trailer site when I was hiking one of my trails. There was a moving truck, and someone was clearing out the ancient trailer. A few weeks later, a brand new luxury RV appeared in its place. I figured someone had bought or rented the old trailer spot, which was fine by me. The area was far enough from my cabin that I barely noticed the new presence. My first actual encounter with Karen happened about a month after she moved in. I was coming back from town with supplies when I found her standing in the middle of the private road with her arms crossed. She was probably in her mid-50s, wearing expensive hiking gear that looked like it had never seen actual dirt, and she had that particular expression I'd come to recognize as trouble. She informed me that I was trespassing on her road. Her road. I was honestly confused at first and tried to explain that this was actually my private road leading to my property. She cut me off and said she'd done her research and this road was part of her leased property. She had papers and everything. I didn't want to start a war with a neighbor, so I just politely told her she must be mistaken and continued driving up to my cabin. But that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Karen's behavior escalated. She started leaving notes on my truck when I'd drive past her RV, claiming I was disturbing her peace and quiet. She accused me of cutting down her trees when I was clearing some deadfall on my own trails. She even called the local sheriff's department once, claiming there was a squatter in an illegal cabin on her property. The deputy who showed up was actually someone I knew from town. He took one look at the situation, confirmed with me that yes, I owned all this land, and told Karen she needed to check her lease agreement more carefully. She insisted she had every right to be there and that I was the one who needed to leave. That's when I first saw her lease agreement. She showed it to the deputy, triumphantly pointing at the property description. And that's when I understood the problem. The person who'd owned that old trailer had apparently told Karen's landlord that they owned the whole mountain. The landlord had then leased Karen a property that didn't actually belong to them. Karen had been scammed, but she refused to believe it. The deputy suggested we all sort this out legally, and he left. I figured that would be the end of it. Karen would talk to her landlord, realize the mistake, and we'd sort out whether she could actually stay in that spot or needed to leave. I was even willing to let her stay if she stopped harassing me, but Karen had other plans. She hired a lawyer. Not to go after her landlord for leasing her property they didn't own, but to go after me. She was absolutely convinced that I was the one who was wrong, that my property records were fraudulent, and that she was the rightful resident of the mountain. Her lawyer sent me a formal eviction notice, demanding I vacate my cabin within 30 days. I called my own lawyer, showed him the notice, and he laughed. He explained that not only was the eviction notice completely baseless, but Karen's lawyer had made several legal errors in the document itself. My lawyer sent back a response explaining that I owned the entire mountain, including the spot where Karen's RV was sitting, and provided copies of the deed, survey records, and tax documents proving it. Karen's response was to double down. She filed a complaint with the county, claiming my cabin violated building codes. She called environmental services, claiming I was polluting the mountain. She even tried to report me to the Forestry Service for illegal logging. Every single agency that came out to investigate found nothing wrong, and each time they told Karen the same thing. I owned the property, and she was the one who was there without proper permission. That's when Karen made her fatal mistake. She went to the county courthouse and filed for a formal court order to have me removed from the property. She wanted a judge to force me out of my own cabin. In her filing, she demanded that I immediately cease all use of the road, remove all my possessions from the cabin, and vacate the entire upper portion of the mountain, which she claimed was her exclusive property. My lawyer called me when he saw the filing, and I could hear the grin in his voice. He asked me one question. Did I want to comply with her request exactly as written? Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. Karen's court filing specifically demanded that I stop using the road and vacate the upper portion of the mountain. The road, as I mentioned, runs from the highway all the way up to my cabin, passing right by Karen's RV at the halfway point. If I stopped using the road, well, I wouldn't be driving past her place anymore. But neither would anyone else, because it was a private road that I controlled. With my lawyer's help, I filed a response that agreed to comply with certain aspects of her request. I wouldn't use the road anymore. I had the gate I'd never bothered to install at the base of the mountain put up and locked. I had no trespassing signs posted every 50 feet, and I had my lawyer send notice to Karen's landlord that their lease was invalid, as they'd leased property they didn't own, and they had 14 days to remove all structures from my land. The court date arrived, and I showed up with my lawyer and a folder full of documents. Karen showed up with her lawyer in an attitude of absolute confidence. The judge reviewed the case, looked at my property records, looked at Karen's lease, and asked Karen's lawyer to explain how his client had standing to evict someone from property she didn't own. The hearing didn't last long. The judge dismissed Karen's case entirely and warned her lawyer about filing frivolous lawsuits. Then things got worse for Karen. Her landlord, realizing they were about to be sued for fraud, cut off all contact with her. Her lease was worthless. And because I'd locked the gate at the bottom of the mountain, she now had no legal way to access her RV. She tried to argue that she had a right to access the road, but my lawyer pointed out that it was my private road, and she'd specifically demanded in her court filing that I stop allowing access to it. She'd gotten exactly what she asked for. Karen had to hire a moving company with special equipment to remove her luxury RV from the property. Because she couldn't use the road, they had to bring in a helicopter to airlift the RV out. I heard it cost her over $20,000. She also had to pay her own legal fees, plus she lost all the money she'd paid for her fraudulent lease. The final twist came a few months later. Karen's landlord was prosecuted for fraud after it turned out they'd pulled this scam on multiple people, leasing property they didn't own all over the county. Karen actually tried to sue me for damages, claiming I'd somehow caused her financial loss, but that case was thrown out even faster than her first one. I still live in my cabin on my mountain. The gate stays locked now, and I've got proper no trespassing signs up. I occasionally see hikers who've gotten lost and wandered onto my property, but they're always respectful when I explain it's private land. As for Karen, I heard through the town gossip chain that she moved back to the city and tells everyone who'll listen about the crazy mountain man who stole her property. I guess some people never learn. The irony is that if she'd just been a decent neighbor from the start, I probably would have let her stay in that spot for a reasonable fee, but she wanted everything her way, demanded I leave my own property, and ended up losing everything instead. That's what happens when you try to evict someone who actually owns the mountain. The next one is a petty revenge story. As a teenager, I worked as a checker bagger for a large local grocery store chain. One busy Sunday, I was bagging at a register and a regular Karen came through the line. She had a large order and items started piling up quickly while I bagged. As I'm working, Karen is very carefully watching my every move with a scowl on her face. Her loaf of bread comes down, followed by a small bunch of bananas. The bananas barely touch the bread, which activates full Karen mode. OMG, you smooshed my bread. Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, although I don't see any damage. No, right there, it's ruined. You need to go back and get me a new loaf of bread right now. I happily reply, okay, sure thing, and walk away with the bread, leaving the rest of her order piling up. I slowly circled the store a few times, stopping to chit-chat with some coworkers. About 10 minutes later, I walk back up to the front of the store without swapping out her bread for a new loaf. When I get back to the front, I see Karen standing behind the register with her things bagged up and waiting for me. Here you go, ma'am, I said with a smile as I handed her the exact same loaf of bread. That's much better, she muttered as she took the bread and put it in her basket. Had she not been so rude, or if the bread had actually been damaged, I would have swapped it out in about 30 seconds. The rest of my day was great, although I felt bad for the checker who had to bag the remainder of her order, because of course she couldn't touch it herself. The next one is a malicious compliance story. Back when I was in the Army, my tank driver was someone who you'd really not want to spend time with unless you absolutely had to, like for instance if you were in a tank crew with him and needed the tank to actually get from point A to point B. When it comes to crew breakdown in a tank, it goes like this. Tank gunner, my position. Coolest job in the tank, you get to shoot the big gun. You also have to do the least amount of maintenance work on the tank. Loader, does most of the idiot work in the tank. Has to carry and load multiple heavy tank shells. Tilde, 45-50 kg each. Not much maintenance work, but spends like 3 hours cleaning the 3 machine guns. Driver, drives the tank. Pretty simple, but a good driver will give you a smooth ride. A bad driver will make you feel every dip and bump in the terrain. Does the most maintenance work since they are in charge of the tank tracks and bogies, steel wheels in the tracks. Tank commander, knows how to do all the positions, doesn't do any maintenance since they are usually in briefings on maintenance day. A good crew knows how to begin to think alike, doing things together without asking. It helps that you sleep together in the tank, so you all get to know each other pretty intimately. Nothing like pissing in a water bottle to remove any shyness between crew members. When it comes to maintenance, you can either have all the gunners from the platoon get together and work on all the platoon's tanks together, same with drivers, gunners, or each crew can do their own tank. Usually we prefer the first option because it goes quicker. In this case, my crew was sent to support an infantry exercise on a different base in the middle of the desert on our own. We were simulating a whole tank company, but budget cuts meant only one tank was sent. Sunday, we got to base and deployed with our tank down into the exercise area. Monday, Wednesday night, we exercised. Thursday morning, the drill ended and it was maintenance day. Crucial element here is that you don't get to go home for the weekend until your maintenance is complete, the flip side being that you could leave as soon as maintenance was completed and signed off on. The entire exercise, the driver was being a complete ass. I don't know if his girlfriend broke up with him or whatever, but he was even more annoying than usual. Aside from his attitude, his driving was so bad the TC almost broke a rib one time, and I nearly got a black eye when shooting in motion, and he, unintentionally I'm sure, aimed straight for a small ditch. By the time Thursday came around, the loader and I couldn't get rid of him for the weekend quickly enough. But, alas, first, maintenance beckoned. One of the tasks the gunner has to do is clean the cannon with a oiled cleaning rod. This is a 3-man job, loader in the tank, and 2 people clean it from the outside. It can't be done by one person no matter how strong they are. I asked the driver to help me since the loader was inside the tank. The driver angrily told me he didn't want to hear from me or speak to me. No worries, I found somebody to give me a hand for a few minutes and we got the job done. I completed the rest of my maintenance work pretty quickly, like I said, not much actually, with the help of the loader, and then I gave him a hand cleaning the machine guns. The 2 of us were done before lunchtime, just waiting for the TC to sign off on our work so we could start our weekend early. Driver, on the other hand, realized that he didn't have any other drivers to help him maintain the tracks, tension, tightening bolts, greasing ports, etc., and he had told us to F off. He was still working on the tank when it got dark and was told to stop for safety reasons. He had to continue the job on Friday morning and missed out on a day of leave. I want to say that his attitude changed on Sunday when we got back to base, but you know it didn't. Thankfully, after about 2 more months of his nonsense, he was transferred out. I have no idea where he is today. I'm still good friends with the loader, and TC, the driver, can get bent. The next one is an entitled people story. For context, I work in what's essentially a community mental health setting, with a focus on substance abuse. As such, we get a lot of interns. That's how I started last year. Most of whom are paid, and we keep quite a few who pass muster, which honestly is a lot of them. We have very little turnover, but a large amount of clients, so we tend to have room. We have an intern now who is trying on everyone's patience. She leaves the break room a mess regularly. Dirty dishes on the table or in the sink, food mess on the table, empty wrappers left around. You get the picture. She also failed her course last semester due to not fulfilling her hours, so she has to repeat. Now, we all show grace because she does have a disability, not sure what, and I refuse to ask, but she did mention freely there's little pain, mostly just difficulty with gross motor skills, so we don't judge or assume about work ethic. Maybe she had some bad days and couldn't make it. The messes, though, are hard to be patient with, however, as to at least toss the wrappers is on the way out of the kitchen. She literally has to walk past the can on her way out. Apparently it is the same when she uses common office spaces. Despite clear and easy access to garbage cans, she leaves her food and wrappers on tables and desks. We've tried politely mentioning it, but she makes some excuse like, I forgot, or I was going to do it later. Whatever, it's easier for us to handle it at this point. We don't know her struggle. She's routinely complained about not being offered a job yet. I sympathized and asked if they had said a firm no yet. She said no, but that our supervisor was harsh about her notes. I offered to help and she said yes. I took a look and wow, they really were dreadful. Copy and pasting notes from other clients, which led to errors in diagnoses, races, and genders. That's a huge problem since we work in the mental health field and insurance can already be a nightmare to deal with even when we do our work right. I guided her through it, but she became frustrated and said it was too confusing. The other co-workers in her department gave her guided outlines, and in layman's terms. Same thing, too hard, confusing. Like, girl, how do you intend to do this as a full-time job for a government agency? Her goal. Again, trying to show grace. We don't know what it's like for her, just show repeated patience and guidance, treat her like we want to be treated. Until today. Hoo boy, I'm a thicker lady, but wear nice clothes to the office. I've found good sellers and decent manufacturers, usually around $30 to $50 average price, $20 or so on clearance, which is how I tend to snag some good deals. She's close to my size and asked me where I shopped. I told her the various places and prices. She said it was too expensive. Okay, fair. I know the struggle, but that I may have a few items of clothing I'm not wearing anymore she could have. She was ecstatic, and so I brought in multiple pieces, including shirts, dresses, and shrugs/cardigans. She took a few tops, but then sneered at the dresses. I'm not wearing those, she snapped. The straps are too thin and will show my bra. Oh no, sweat, I'm the same way, so I wear shrugs or cardigans over them. Keeps me looking professional, and they're pretty cheap online if you don't like the ones I brought. I can show you, they're maybe $10 a pop. I don't have that kind of money. Don't you have matching ones you can give me? No, I'm using the ones I have. The ones I brought are the ones I don't need. I'm sure you have another one you're not using. I've seen you wear a different white one. How about that one? You have 2. They're different shades and go with different dresses. I use both of them, sorry. But the one you're talking about was $12. I can send you the link. I already told you I'm broke. Can't you just give it to me? No. Sorry. Ugh, fine. Then take these back. I don't want them. And tosses the dresses haphazardly back in the bag. Meanwhile, she admits to ordering out for most of her meals, including a pretty expensive chain known for their $12 desserts, which she gets regularly. Like, IDK, man, maybe you could buy your own damn sweater if you didn't buy ducking $30 spaghetti and $12 cake every week. Or at least be polite and grateful about when someone just hands you about $200 worth of free clothing that you could absolutely rock the crap out of if you spent $10 on a sweater. I try to view it from her perspective, rationalize it through the lens of her different ability, but I don't think there's any excuse for being so entitled about the free clothes. Whatever, hopefully she enjoys the tops. At least they're not going to be $50 at Goodwill or something, lol. The next one is an entitled parent story. Background. My sister, F13, used to be really close friends with a pair of twins in her grade. We'll call them Janet and Gina. They were both notoriously hyperactive kids, and the three of them clicked right away. Their friendship started back in 3rd grade, and over time, even my mom and the twins' mom became best friends. The irony? By the time they reached 7th grade, the school reshuffled classes. My sister and the twins ended up in different sections, which split up their group. They still kept in touch, but naturally drifted into separate circles. So now, while the moms are still super close, my sister and the twins are more like casual old friends. Before diving into the actual drama, here's one thing you should know. The twins have a strong, gossiping, teasing streak, and during arguments, they can get pretty aggressive with words, especially when they know they're 100% right. The drama begins. Janet is part of Scouts and Guides, and last Saturday she went on a camp with about 15 other teens, ages 12-15. During a break, Janet was goofing around, hopping on the ground in just her socks with a couple of other kids, when a senior, Swati, 10th grade, told her to sit down. In the middle of the chaos, Janet accidentally stepped on the shawl of another girl from her class. Let's call her PJ. Janet says she immediately apologized, but PJ snapped back with, "You people wouldn't know what manners are, you live in such an awful place." Now, if this was the 1980s, maybe that area wasn't the best, but today it's actually full of well-educated, well-off families. They just show off their wealth differently. Lots of gold and property instead of flashy luxuries. Naturally, Janet was offended and argued, "Just because you're rich, you can't look down on us." Swati, the senior, made both of them apologize, and it seemed like things ended there, but of course it didn't. At lunchtime, the kids from my sister's school realized nobody had been told to bring a plate. The teacher asked a helper to go buy some, and Janet, being hungry, asked another girl nearby if the person standing a little distance away was the one sent to get plates. Before anyone could answer, PJ butted in, saying, "That's my bodyguard." Confused, Janet asked, "Wait, your dad's a police officer, so he has guards, but why do you personally need a bodyguard?" It was a genuine question. She was just clueless, but PJ completely lost it. She started yelling, "How dare you talk about my dad like that?" She ran to the teacher, twisted the story, and made a huge scene. Even when other students tried to explain, the teacher silenced everyone and took PJ's side. The story definitely doesn't end there. On Monday, PJ's mom showed up at school and filed a complaint claiming that Janet and her gang were constantly bullying PJ. She said that's why PJ couldn't focus on her studies or build genuine relationships. But she didn't stop there. She actually saw Janet in school and started yelling at her. Janet, being Janet, tried to defend herself respectfully without being rude, but after being cornered for so long by an adult, and then even being shut down by her own teacher for talking back, she completely broke down. She ended up having an anxiety attack and a fever, and honestly, in my country, people don't take that seriously. Awareness is still a long way off. As if that wasn't enough, PJ's mom later called Janet's mom. She questioned her upbringing, mocked the area she grew up in, and even threatened that she wouldn't rest until scumbags like Janet and Gina were expelled from school. Janet's mom was shocked and confused. To make it worse, she got a call from the school saying Janet was unwell and needed to be picked up early. When she met with the staff, she felt they were biased, so the next day she marched into the principal's office and laid out everything, the fights, the insults, PJ's mom's behavior. The principal reassured her, "Don't worry, no one is getting expelled on my watch, I'll handle this after Teacher's Day." Relieved, Janet's mom agreed to wait. But PJ's mom wasn't done. She started calling other parents, bad-mouthing the twins, and telling them to keep their kids away from Janet and Gina. Around 5 parents actually reached out to Janet's mom, confused about why PJ's mom was acting like this over a kid's fight. Even then, PJ's mom kept escalating. She went back to school, met with the class teacher, and once again painted the twins as evil. Just to get rid of her, the teacher claimed that she told another student not to talk to the twins, only as a way to blow PJ's mom off. But that move backfired, because PJ later cornered Gina and mocked her, asking if Janet was absent because she was too scared to face her. Gina stayed quiet, went home, and told her mom. The next day, Gina's mom confronted the class teacher, who admitted she'd been wrong and said PJ's mom was pushing all limits for something so trivial. Once Janet was back at school, the teacher sat all three girls down and tried to resolve things. That was Monday through Thursday. But then today, something absurd happened. PJ, along with her mom and dad, actually tracked down Janet's house and showed up in a police car. They didn't even ask permission. They just walked in and sat on the couch. They claimed the school wasn't taking action, so they came to set things straight. Janet's mom asked why they were at her home when the matter was supposed to be handled by the principal. PJ's father, a cop, snapped back, saying she didn't even welcome them with a smile, and added that since the school wasn't acting, Janet's mom should keep things under control in her own house. Then PJ's mom jumped in, bragging about their wealth and asking how people like Janet's family could even compare to them. Janet's mom had enough. She yelled back, saying they had no right to insult her community. The response? PJ's parents accused the twins of ruining PJ's school life and claimed Janet and her 6 friends had given PJ a mean nickname, which basically meant boastful in our language. That name had later spread and become what the whole class called her. Janet's mom asked why only her daughter was being singled out when it was clearly a group thing. They had no answer and just circled back to the same accusations. At that point, Janet's mom realized this wouldn't stop. She called her husband, who then reached out to a friend, a fellow parent who happened to be a PA to a minister. Meanwhile, since the class teacher wasn't answering her phone, Janet's mom called the PE teacher, who alerted the principal. While this was happening, the twins tried to defend their mom and question PJ's behavior. PJ's mom snapped back, "My daughter would never do such things. Stop spinning lies. Maybe this area taught you to lie, but at least your mom should have taught you some manners." That's when the minister's PA called. Janet's mom put the phone on speaker, and he immediately started grilling PJ's dad. Which station was he from, and why was he abusing his authority by showing up in a cop car for a personal fight? He warned him never to mix his job with personal issues and basically told him to get out. Right after that, the principal called PJ's mom directly and ordered her to leave Janet's house immediately. The whole family hurried out. Janet's mom was furious. Their relatives, who lived nearby, heard about the chaos and felt embarrassed. She was also upset that her kids had spoken up during the argument, worried it would look bad, even though they were right. Right now, she's leaning on my mom for support, and she's planning to confront the principal again on Monday. Until then, no one knows what PJ's mom is plotting next. For what it's worth, my sister and her friends all say the same thing. They can't stand PJ because she brags constantly and threatens to get kids expelled by using her mom's influence. So yeah, that's where things stand for now. I'll keep you all posted if anything new unfolds. Anyway, thank you for watching.